Welcome once again to today's lecture. And for today, we're looking at the part two of our lecture on pharmacy appreciation, which we started the last time. My name is Fam McBequin, and we'll be continuing from where we left off. Now, today's lesson objectives are at the end of the lesson, we should be able to understand how pharmacy evolved from healers to its current state. In fact, the last time we looked at the history of pharmacy and we were able to come through up to where we all realized that pharmacy went through tremendous changes to the definition of pharmacy. But today we're looking at the healers, which in the olden days were able to heal in a particular way. We look at the apothecaries, I'll be explaining it. We look at standard books that are now being used in pharmacy. We look at the history of how pharmacy school started and also the history of how pharmacy education started in Ghana. Then, as usual, you have a question and answers question for you to answer and send it to my inbox. Pharmacy in the olden days was seen not as pharmacy, but it was a comprehensive healing where we had the healers that healed based on their spiritual beliefs. So as you can see the picture, they call on their gods and they prepare medicines at the same time. So the sick had both people healing them, one person acting as a priest, seeking the guidance of the gods, and at the same time preparing medicines for the sick person to also take. So as time went on, we saw that the ancient record revealed that there was now a gradual separation of the empirical healing, that is, those who were healing based on experience, using plants and animals to heal people, from those who were purely doing as spiritual. So we saw that the healers now has been divided into, we had now the empirical healers, those who were healing using experience, and also the magical healers. Now, for empirical healers, EH for short, they relied on a large collection of drugs and manipulated them into several dosage forms to heal the sick. Now, when you say a dosage form, basically a dosage form is a form in which a medicine is presented. And normally, this form that the medicine is presented can be a tablet. Okay, so if you have a tablet, a capsule can be a suppository, what we insert into the anus. This dosage form can be a liquid or a suspension. So the empirical healers basically manipulated medicines into various forms to heal the sick. Now, some of these dosage forms included ointments, enemas, as I've said, and pills. Today, people that can be seen to be like empirical healers are the herbalists, the medical doctors, and the like, because really they use plant medicine to heal. When you go to a doctor's consulting room, you don't see the doctor chanting and praying and calling on the gods to heal. They simply use medicines that they prescribe. They diagnose your disease, they prescribe medicines, and they give you treatment. This group of people, we believe they are called the empirical healers. For the magical healers, or sometimes we call them the faith healers or the spiritual healer, they rely more on spells. Okay, they cast spells, they rely on prayers to the gods or to God, they rely on invocations and chants, they use magical stones and other objects, which these objects on their own have no medicinal power, but they believe that the spirits that they call on them empowers these substances to heal. And they normally don't use plants or medicines to heal. So normally they use a fowl and blood, as you can see. And I brought these two pictures at the extreme, where you have a pastor praying and asking for healing for the sick. Then where you have the traditional fetish priest also using various methods and talisman in healing. So these people are called the magical healers. But interestingly, the sick will always go back and forth between these two types of healers, looking for a cure. So now, if you are sick, even though we may go to the hospital for the medical doctor to prescribe medications, or some of us may use herbal medicines, we still combine these things with prayers. We pray to God. If you're a Christian, you pray that God should heal you through Jesus Christ. If you're a Muslim, you pray that God should heal you through Allah, and all these things that they do is something that it helps you in making sure that you become well and healthy. So the olden days use this type of healers and make sure that the sick will able to get comprehensive care. All right. So the olden way of healing the sick, making sure that you are treating them, making sure that you are helping them, was a way that, as at now, if any one of us is sick, we go back and forth. We call on our pastor to pray for us. At the same time, we take medicines that have been prescribed by the medical doctor so that we'll get well. Now, as time went on, we had a group of people called apothecaries. The apothecaries were basically pharmacy practitioners who were trained and worked with doctors or medical practitioners, and all that they did was to repair medicines that the doctors give them, the formula they give them, so that the sick can get their medicine. This group of people were called the apothecaries. Now, the apothecaries in the olden days always works with the medical doctor. Okay, so pharmacy itself did not start as a separate profession, no, but the assistants that were helping the medical doctors evolved to become pharmacists when the cost of treatment that was given to patients by the university trained physicians were being so high, and this one led to the emergence, or it led to the apothecaries as a group emerging, coming out to practice. Now the apothecaries became more and more like general medical practitioners in their practice. They were trained as apprentices for quite some time before they were able to practice on their own, and obviously as they were doing that, they had to sign a bond before they were trained to serve for a certain period and pay a fee to be trained. Okay, so now this is where we saw that people now wanted to train other people on how to heal. So if you want to know how to heal, you consult a physician, they take you on board as the assistants, they train you, you pay a fee, and at the end of your training, you stay with them and work for them for some time. So basically, that was what was going on. And this group of people were called the apothecary. When they finish everything, they come on their own and start their own apothecary shop where they are able to treat diseases that are minor. Now, in 1812, there was a war, especially in the United States, and more physicians gained experience in hospitals and dispensaries instead of preceptors. What it means that these doctors were no more interested in teaching people to become apothecaries again. Their interest was now more in the hospitals and to learn more complex how to do surgeries and stuff. All right. So here the apothecaries learned to write prescriptions instead of compounding them, because the doctors were not there to write the prescription for them. So for them, if you are sick and you go to the apothecary shop, they write the prescription, they look at what is happening to you, and they write the prescription for you, and they are able to recommend the type of treatment that you need. Now, after graduation, most of these practitioners, that is apothecaries, continue to write prescriptions, thereby stimulating the growth of pharmacy. Okay, so here it wasn't done by the doctors again, it was being done by the apothecaries who were assistants to the doctors. And because the doctors were not available, they were filling in the space and they were writing the prescription. So as the physicians wrote to the apothecaries to compound and dispense, concern rose over the consistency with which these medicines were prepared. So let's say that there's one apothecary, for the sake of our lecture, called Mark, and there's another apothecary called John. Now, the medicine Mark prepares normally seem to be quite different from the medicine John prepares, and John's medicine was different from another person's medicine. So there was a worry that no, the medicines that these apothecaries are preparing are not standard, and this led to the publishing of a standard book, and also brought out a lot of schools so that they can be standard. If you say you are preparing a medicine like paracetamol, whether it is Mark Pharmacy or John Pharmacy or a Janimo Pharmacy preparing it, it should be the same medicine. The medicine should not be different, irrespective of the type of pharmacies that were manufactured. So there was standard books that were published in the United States in 1808. Massachusetts Medical Society published a state guidebook to drug standards. Okay, so there was a convention of physicians or medical doctors. They met and they all agreed that they will approve a formula to be written in a book. That formula have all the medicines, how it should be prepared, how it should be tested. And this book was called a pharmacopoeia. A pharmacopoeia. So whichever country that brings their pharmacopoeia out, the pharmacopoeia is named after them. So the Pharmacopoeia of the United States of America, simply called the USP, is a pharmacopoeia of the United States of America. Now we have a British pharmacopoeia, it's called the BP. So there are a lot of pharmacopoeias, and even in Ghana, we have the Ghana Herbal Pharmacopoeia. So in 1808, the first pharmacopoeia in the United States were published, and this contained how medicines are supposed to be prepared, how medicines are supposed to be tested, and how medicines are supposed to be used. Now, publishing this standard guidebooks led to the growth of prescription writing, okay, because the doctors now had more confidence in the apothecaries, in the pharmacies, that now, because these books have been published, they will prepare the medicine based on the standard of the pharmacopoeia. Okay, so the establishment of the standard guidebook and a special reference to a pharmacopoeia, okay, led to the growth of pharmacy. Now let's take the definitions again of pharmacopoeia because we are learning. So basically, a pharmacopoeia is a mouthful, I know, but it's simple. Pharmacopoeia, okay, pharmacopoeia. That's one of the vocabularies you'll be learning. It's a book published usually under the jurisdiction of a government and containing a list of drugs, their formulas, the methods for making medicinal preparation, requirements and tests for their strength and purity, and other related information. Okay, so that's when you say a pharmacopoeia. It's just like if you're a Christian, a Bible; if you're a Muslim, a Quran. Okay, so for us as pharmacists and pharmacy staff, the book that guides us in preparing medicines, okay, in testing medicine, is called the Pharmacopoeia. So I've stated and I brought a few pictures. The one on top you can see is the USP, that is United States Pharmacopoeia 39 edition, and the one beneath is the British Pharmacopoeia 2019. Okay, so that's how the pharmacopoeias come. So let's look at some common pharmacopoeias that we have. And we have the British Pharmacopoeia, the abbreviation is BP. Okay, we have the Pharmacopoeia of the People's Republic of China, CHP. We have the European Pharmacopoeia. We have the French Pharmacopoeia. We have the Indian Pharmacopoeia. Then we have the International Pharmacopoeia. There's the PHIN. And the last one is the United States Pharmacopoeia. Now, the interesting thing I'll be showing is that if you buy any medicine, all right, the pharmacopoeia that was used in manufacturing and testing, preparing the medicine is normally stated on it. Okay, if a medicine is marketed as a USP or a BP, it simply means that the tablet or the medicine has been analyzed according to the set specifications mentioned in the corresponding pharmacopoeia before releasing the tablet on market. Okay, so assuming we have a United States Pharmacopoeia, and here we have paracetamol tablets BP. Okay, so the BP here is British Pharmacopoeia, so it's paracetamol tablets, British Pharmacopoeia standards, 500 milligram. That's the amount of paracetamol in one tablet, 500 milligram. All right, so just on a lighter note, sometimes if you don't understand and you're buying it, you may think that it's paracetamol tablets, BP for blood pressure. No, please, the BP is not for blood pressure. It's for British Pharmacopoeia. British Pharmacopoeia. So if you have any medicines in your room, you can pick them and check which pharmacopoeia was used. And the one beneath is Tylenol. Tylenol. You can see it's acetaminophen tablets USP. Acetaminophen tablets USP. And this one says Tylenol used the standards of the United States Pharmacopoeia. All right. So that's the history why when you buy medicines, you may see either BP, USP, CHP, IP, Indian Pharmacopoeia written there to ensure that the pharmaceutical company that manufactured the medicine did it according to a standard. Now, we spoke about the schools of pharmacy. Let's just take a brief look. So, the large growth in the numbers of pharmacists led to the establishment of pharmacy schools and colleges. These colleges established 9 schools for the institution of apprentices and discussion groups on scientific pharmacy. So it wasn't a full-blown school. Normally they are going as a part-time school. Even though that this school was going on, the relationship between the physician, that's the doctor, and the druggist, the apothecaries, the pharmacist, became sour in 1840s. Okay, the physicians thought that the apothecaries were taking their rights, their work from their hands, and the apothecaries are not doing the right things. All right, so there has been a tension between doctors and pharmacists since 1840s in the United States. Now, this normally did not help the practice of pharmacy, and the issue had to be addressed. The apothecaries, however, feeling more confident of their social standing, the apothecaries began shifting their efforts from pleasing just the physician to attending to the ills of customers. Because the physicians trains them, okay, they thought that the physicians will not be able to help them. So the physicians now became basically like their rivals. Okay, so there's a rivalry between them. Now, this rivalry that was going on, consequently, the apothecaries took to filling prescriptions without physician authorization again because they became rivals. So, for a patient to go back to the physician for them to write a prescription for the apothecary, now the apothecaries will just write their own prescription, disregarding the authorization of the physician. Okay, and they were directly treating customers, and this practice was called counter prescribing. It was called counter prescribing. And up to today, we see that when people are sick, they go straight to the pharmacy, okay, to have medicines. And that practice, as I've said, has been called counter prescribing. Laws were now drafted for these two professions because if there are no laws, and later in section B, we'll be starting laws and ethics, the patient will be the one to suffer most. But sometimes it is needful for the patient to go to a hospital to see a medical doctor. The physicians or the apothecaries may not be able to help them completely. All right, so the laws were to protect the interests of the physicians, and at the end of the day, the physicians agreed. So in 1870, in the United States, the state law required one to be examined and be registered to practice pharmacy. You cannot just say that you have been trained under an apothecary, and because of that, you are qualified to practice. All right. So when it comes down to our history today, if you are even an MCA, before you finish your MCA school, okay, pharmacy council would have to register you. If you are not registered and you are practicing, that is illegal. So that is something that the history of pharmacy brought us. We've seen the emergence of apothecaries. We've seen the emergence of now the apothecaries have to be registered before they practice. So pharmacy have grown from 9 schools to now schools of education where people are doing 4 years degree courses. And currently the program they are doing is even a 6 year pharmacy, doctor of pharmacy program that we are running. Now, before we bring our lecture to an end, let's just look at the small history of pharmacy in Ghana. The introduction of pharmacy practice in the then Gold Coast, okay, and now Ghana in the 1930s was associated with the development of Western type medical services. Dispensary school was first set up in Kolebu to train dispensers by our colonial masters. You see, once they came to our country, there was a big issue, malaria. It was killing them. In fact, the Gold Coast was called by the whites by then, the Europeans termed it the death coast. Because most often than if you're not careful and come here, malaria will kill you. All right. So by then, those who were coming to trade, the colonial masters, our colonial masters, who were coming to trade, the missionaries who were bringing the gospels and all those things, they had to bring their medical doctors and farmers along because here we had diseases, what we call the tropical diseases. All right. So that's why Kulibu was set up to take care of these colonial masters. But however, blacks now started working, Africans, Ghanaians started working there. And the people who first started working in their pharmacies were nurses and laboratory technicians who were handpicked. Okay, they were existing healthcare and were trained just for 1 year. They had a knowledge in pharmacy. However, in January 1953, the Faculty of Pharmacy was established in the then Kumasi College of Technology, now called the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. Okay, now its finance students were transferred to the college from the then School of Pharmacy at Kolebu Hospital in Accra. So the first group of students that KNUST had in the pharmacy school, there were only a few. just about 12 students that were transferred there to go and start a degree program. All right, so now Kolebu was training only dispensing assistants, and KNUST was also training pharmacists to be able to come and support. Now, because Kolebu was training and KNU was training, there were two kinds of personnel that were being trained. Now, because there was a lot of confusion that were going around, there was a policy that was made to join the two groups to be called pharmacists. So all training of pharmacists was to be done only at KNUST. However, pharmacy needed a team to work with. So the Kolebu school stopped training dispensers and started rather training what we call the dispensing assistants, okay, to assist the pharmacists in their work. And this training was just for 1 year. Now, training of the dispensing assistants at Kolebu stopped and it was moved to Accra Polytechnic. Okay, so Accra Polytechnic was training the dispensing assistants, and as time went on, we saw that there was an issue because now those who were training in Accra thought they were better than the pharmacists training in Kumasi. All right, so now the government later opened a dispensing school at Kumasi Polytechnic, and the Accra one stopped. So the dispense technicians were moved from Accra to go and continue their studies at Kumasi Polytechnic. So now KNUST was training pharmacists for 4 years so that they will be able to get a pharmacy degree. Kumasi Polytechnics were training dispensing technicians for 2 years so that they will become the dispense technicians. Okay. Now the course have been restructured to be a dispense technologist course. So basically that's how the schools in pharmacy and dispense technicians started in Ghana. Now, as this thing went on, we saw that there was a big gap between the pharmacists, the dispense technician, because the dispense technicians and the pharmacists were not staying in the community pharmacy, what we call the drugstore, the pharmacy shops, okay? So the pharmacies at the communities, the community pharmacies were left with people who had no training at all in medicine to be manning. So you go there, somebody has finished BC, SSC, they are manning the shop. Some of them have not even gone to school before and they are sitting there. When you go and you are sick, they don't show any professionalism. So in 2005, the medicine counter assistant training course began. And this was done to train people at least with a background of SSC, or if this person has already been employed in a pharmacy but they don't even have SSC but they have exposure. The policy said that this group can be trained, okay, so that they will be able to help standardized competencies in the pharmacy. So prior to this group, some pharmacies were having in-house training for such support staff, but these trainings were not standardized, as we said. Pharmacy Council was not regulating them. So the Pharmacy Council now decided to help them. All right. So in 2005, as the training started, there was issues and the training was abrogated. The training was stopped by the Pharmacy Council in 2012 due to some regulatory issues and reintroduced again in April 2019, just last year. All right, with the challenges that were seen in the 2005 policies guideline overcome and the policy reintroduced again. So the MCA program is quite new. Now, majority, if I'm not afraid, I'll say about 99% of pharmacists in Ghana, okay, you see medicine counter stands there, okay, and medicine counter stands have changed the practice of pharmacy drastically. All right, they are competent, they are trained, and they work under the supervision of a pharmacist. Thank you very much for today's lecture. What have we learned? I spoke about the healers, the two types of healers, the empirical healers and the faith or the magical healers. And I told you that from these group of healers, we had the physicians, and the assistants to the physicians were the apothecaries. Now, because the apothecaries were having different formulas in preparing medicines, we had to publish a book called a standard book so that everybody manufacturing medicine should use a standard book in manufacturing. Now, the physicians' confusion with the apothecaries led to the schools of pharmacy being developed, so that now if you want to learn the acts and practice of pharmacy, you go to a school. We've also learned the history of pharmacy in Ghana, that the education started in the Kolebu Teaching Hospital. That's where the School of Pharmacy started. It was later transferred to the KNUST, then the College of Science and Technology, all right, education. And the last thing we learned was that medicine counter assistants, as we are today, okay, the program started in 2005 to train people to have competencies in the pharmacy. Thank you very much for having to listen to this lecture. But as I always do, I'll leave you some questions. Please answer them. Some of you have answered yours and sent it to my inbox. That's very good. In fact, I've been very impressed with the answers you've been giving. Keep it up. For those who have not, please send your assignments to my inbox. So for today's assignment, you had state the two types of healers. Very simple. If you have listened to my lecture, it should be very simple. Name the differences between the two types of healers. And now this one is for you to do. What the difference between the empirical healer and the magical healer? Tell me, think and tell. Okay, it's not straightforward in my lecture, but if you have been able to listen to my lecture, okay, you can be able to tell me something. There states 5 types of pharmacopoeias. That's very simple. What is the main importance of the pharmacopoeia? Why should we have a pharmacopoeia? Why is it important? And my last question, do you think the rivalry between the apothecaries and the physicians helped in the development of pharmacy? Please state your answer. Don't give me a yes or no. Some of you just gave me a yes or no when I asked the question about Asclepius. So please discuss it and give me a very good write-up. God bless you. God willing, on Friday, I'll post the last part of your lecture and we'll have a small class test. God be with you and stay safe from this COVID. Bye-bye.